Case study number 5, our athletic portraits. Now, I want to talk through these scenes because these were some of the more complex scenes and setups that we've done, and we didn't spend too much time as far as the thoughts and approach that went into shooting these shots. When I arrived at the gym, and by the way, again, these trainers, most of the shoots that we've done here, these are all our clients, guys. If we can't use these techniques on actual shoots, I wouldn't be teaching them to you. But when the techniques are going to be a little bit more difficult or impractical, I've been trying to be as honest as possible and telling you that, this is really more of a lighting 201 thing, but if you're in a pinch, you can do this type of technique. But that's not what we have here. This is a technique that's actually very reasonable to do. Now, if I do have off-camera light setups, then of course use them. And if I'm shooting it professionally, then of course do it. My client does know here that we are filming and we're filming for educational purposes, so we're going to use on-camera flash and reflectors and so forth, and they were cool with that. I would not show up to a professional shoot with just my on-camera flash and a couple reflectors without them knowing that. They're going to feel like, well, where's all the gear? Where's all the professional stuff? Where is all the, it's just not a good idea, okay? So be sure that they're aware of what you're gonna be working with and stuff. Otherwise, they might be a little bit surprised. But what is the thoughts and approach? When we got to this gym, and I work out this gym quite a bit, so I know the gym layout, and one of the thoughts that I had was, it has this garage door, the back of the garage door, and I actually love using the back of garage doors to get shots because you can do a lot of unique things with the lines on them, with lighting them a certain way, and you can light them in a way that it really doesn't look like a garage door. It'll look like a fantastic pattern or leading lines or so forth. So I thought, what I'd like to do is use this garage door and maybe use it as my backlight in the shot. When I got there, the door was closed, so I just asked, is it okay if we open the door a little bit? So what did I do? I placed an assistant just right in front of where I would have basically these guys standing. Just an assistant to stand there as a subject or a placeholder in my frame. And I have someone open the garage door just while I look at basically the kind of rim light that the garage door is allowing to come in. The garage door is basically creating not kind of a rim on the side, but really more of a backlight because it's coming straight from the back and it's giving him a nice little edge. And you can see it around Levi as well. We get this nice little edge. And right when I have it kind of about right, it's like maybe a foot and a half off the ground, I say that's great, leave it right there, it's just a nice little kiss of light and it's perfect. The next thing I go is I'd love for that light to be able to come in and kind of have a little bit of ambience to it. I want that light to come in and have emotion and feel. So I think, okay, well, let's use the fog machine. We have the Rosco Mini V. It's a fairly inexpensive fog machine, guys. It's only $450, and it adds so much production value to images like this one, and it's a fantastic effect to have. One, you can have these more smoky effects, but when you let the fog dissipate, you get this beautiful ambient and kind of environmental haze that looks beautiful and it kind of fills up spaces and prevents the scene from being so contrasty and so black and so forth. So I have them pop that and just fill the background a little bit with some fog. And we kind of are shooting at different moments with fog, like dispersed versus not dispersed. So when it's not dispersed, it kind of looks more like smoke. And when it's dispersed, it looks kind of more like an ambient effect. If you guys don't want to buy a fog machine because maybe you don't shoot enough with it, that's fine. Go out and rent one. You can rent a fog machine, guys, for like 20 bucks, 30 bucks. Okay, and then the fog fluid, you can buy a bottle of it for 20 bucks. And I'm still on the same bottle of fluid and I've used it for like, I don't know, 30, 40 shoots. It lasts forever. So that's how we're getting kind of that look in the background. Okay, so now that I've got that, I go, okay, let me figure out my exposure for this background. I've got my fog in there a little bit so I can see what that looks like. I've got my subject standing here. I just want to see a little bit of this lines in the background. I want to see some of that light coming through. So we expose. We're on the 2470. It's this 2470 Canon Mark II f2.8 lens. And we're shooting at 1/50 of a second at f2.8 ISO 400. One thing to note is my shutter speed is getting fairly slow. So with a shutter speed that slow, I probably want to make sure that I turn on what? On the flash. RCS, right? Rear curtain sync. You need to have your rear curtain sync on because our flash is getting slow. I want to make sure that if there is any motion, the flash is coming at the end of the frame to freeze everything. Now, I'm not trying to get motion in these shots. I'm just lowering the shutter speed because I don't want to raise my ISO up anymore, and I want to be able to get some of that ambient effect, that ambient light in the background. So I'm lowering the shutter speed, just kind of keeping it still, using rear curtain sync just in case. Okay, so I've got that background exposure. Now, what have we done here? We've created essentially, we have now a background light. We have a light that's now on the background. So we have a backlight coming in. We have a background light kind of right behind him over this background area. So that's 2 lights. That back light is also acting to kind of give him a little lighting right there. So we have this 2 light setup, and all we've done is just modified the existing location lighting a little bit. I've also turned off the existing lights in the gym because they're these kind of fluorescent lights. They don't really look that great. And now we set up our lighting. So for the subject, I use the V-flat. We use the white V-flat. Why? Because I want the light on this side to go from head to toe, which means that I want that V-flat to be standing head to toe. And then I also want the light coming off the V-flat to be a little bit less intense. That way, when I use a silver on the other side to kick, well, the silver is closer in the kind of intensity as the white. Remember, if I use a silver as the first bounce and a white as the second, the white's going to be much, much less intense as a fill than the silver is. If I flip it around and make the white the first bounce, then the silver is going to be closer in strength because the silver picks up more light. The white is going to leave a little bit of light. It's going to lower the intensity just a little bit. So we use the white V-flat. When I'm firing against that V-flat, okay, the V-flat is straight up and down. There's not really a way to tip a V-flat without using stands or without having your assistant hold it. So to get the light to come kind of top down, I'm flashing up a little bit, okay? So I'm flashing a little bit up and into the top of the V-flat. So that way when the light comes back, it's kind of more the light is coming from above than below. So if you are getting some of that spill, throw the grid on, okay? The grid is going to control it from spilling into the background and coming back. It's going to control from spilling onto your subjects. Either way, you want to make sure that all your light is getting into the V-flat and not going anywhere else. All right, so that silver is placed on the other side, and what are we bouncing at? We're right around 1/4 to 1/8 power, and we get these shots. Now, it's essentially split lighting. That V-flat is heavily directional. It's right off to his right side, to his right side. I'm simply controlling whether we're getting Rembrandt lighting by the face position, right? We have him looking down to the right, we get a little bit of Rembrandt. We have him look straight at the camera, we get split. Either way, this lighting is fantastic because it's very directional and it comes across the body, and you can see what it does to his veins, his vascularity. It really drops a lot of shadows around the veins, which brings out his muscle definition, brings out muscle definition across the body. And because we're firing top to kind of that high point in the V-flat, the light's also kind of coming down, and so it's creating a little bit of shadow also underneath the abs. Now, the one change that I would like to make is I would love to get the V-flat up just a little bit higher and maybe angle a little more, but that requires kind of stands and something else involved, and we just didn't have that on set. And I didn't want an assistant to kind of hold it the entire time, because if you're bouncing, you're going to get very inconsistent results if it's not on a stand, okay? But you can see we have great definition. Now, there's one thing that I wanted to point out here. If you look closely at this image with Levi, you'll notice a little tiny black edge around his body over here, okay? What do you think that black edge is from? I keep doing this little children's pause thing. What do you think that's from? Let me ask you a question, as if you guys can answer for me. Joe's like, I don't know what that is. He's nodding. Do whatever you want, Pi. It's totally okay. Okay, that black edge is coming from basically the shutter speed. I'm getting a tiny bit of motion, either from the camera or from him. A little bit of motion and movement, like maybe he's breathing, maybe he's doing something. The flash is freezing him, but there's a tiny bit of motion there, and that's the black edge that we see, where basically we're cutting off light from the background with his figure. And so we get a little bit of a black edge around. So you can just pop off a few shots. If you're slowing down the shutter speed, pop off a few shots so you make sure they're completely still. You can also mitigate that by putting the camera onto a tripod and then taking still. You need to take a few shots and tell him to hold his breath, or exhale and let all the breath come out and then take the shots, so that way there's no movement in him either. But that's due to your shutter speed drag, because we're starting to see a little bit of motion get picked up. So, of course, the other thing you could do in this situation is speed up the shutter speed. We didn't have that on Jeremiah, even though these are at the same settings. And I have plenty of shots with Levi without it as well. There's just this one shot that had it, and I wanted to show it to you all so you guys know exactly what that is in case you want to remove it from your images. If it happens and it's an image that you love, not a big deal. You can always go into Photoshop and just kind of clone stamp the edge all around, and it's totally fine. It'll fix it. But if you can fix it in camera, you should, because it's much easier. So in total gear, well, what do we have? We have a grid. We used a V-flat. We used a silver bounce plus the stand to hold the bounce. We have our fog machine, which again is kind of an optional thing. Here we let that fog dissipate, and it ends up almost looking like a little bit of steam coming off his body, which looks awesome. Here the fog is more intense and kind of full, and it looks more like smoke. We have shots where we'll show you also where it looks like it's more dissipated. It's just environmental. You don't even see any steam or anything. It just looks like the environment has a little bit of gray in it. It doesn't look like it falls to complete black, which is really nice to kind of reducing some of the contrast in scenes like this. Sometimes a scene gets too contrasty, too black and white and detailed, and that fog and that haze lifts some of the shadows a little bit. It looks really nice. And that's really it, guys. So you can choose, as far as the gear goes, which ones you prefer as far as which reflectors, V-flats, and all that kind of stuff. Just remember, when it comes to the shot, set it up first. Set up your background, set up everything, look at the lights that are existing, try and manipulate that a little bit so you have more light to work with by, opening up the garage just a little bit. We have a backlight, positioning them, then adding in your own light. Remember, start with the first primary light, your key light, and then add your fill or whatever other light you need as necessary afterwards. That's it for this shot. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and let's head on to the next video now.